Today what we're going to look at is my gear, what I currently use 90% of the time versus what I probably don't use as often as I should, and also talk about what I could have held out on getting and I should have probably got something else instead. So subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Let's get straight into it with the workhorse. My main camera system is my Sony a7C. Now, originally when I had started my photography hobby, I was using, and I've got it right here, my Canon EOS 200D, which I think in America is the Canon Rebel T something. Great camera, great starter camera. It cost me like 800 bucks. You know, it came with a little kit lens. I think I bought a 50 millimeter fantastic plastic, whatever you want to call it, lens. Really cool, but once I had decided that I wanted to make this more of a living, I knew I needed to get into a full frame camera and have access to full frame lenses. And the reason that I actually jumped over to the Sony system is because my mentor at the time, as well as some other photographers that I was learning from, they were all rocking a Sony system. So it made sense to jump ship early before I invested in all the Canon gear, because I was learning from people who use Sony cameras. It just made the teaching process easier. Now, the Sony a7C is a fantastic little camera. I've had it for about 2 years now. I absolutely love it. The image quality that comes out of it is so great once you really learn the settings and you get better as a photographer. But there's like a few little things that I don't like about it that I'm starting to get a bit irked with. One being the main thing, which is the actual grip for the camera is just so small for my hands personally. And so it isn't that comfortable to hold when you're doing a full day shoot, especially when you put something like the 70 to 200 on it. It becomes very front heavy and it just really hurts your wrists after a full day of shooting. Now, to be fair, throw something like the 35mm 1.8 on, or the more recent 24, 40 and 50G lenses, this thing becomes a powerhouse for, travel photography and portraits when you're just trying to travel very light. Moving on to my lens selection, I have got the G lens 20mm 1.8, I've got the 35 1.8, I have got the 85 f 1.4 G Master and the 70 to 200 G Master Mark 1. All of these lenses are fantastic and I will be making separate videos on them individually about how I use them and why I love having them. But getting straight into just a little bit of information, basically my 20mm 1.8 fantastic lens for landscape photography, talk to camera YouTube videos, as well as I want to take it out and do some astrophotography with it. Decently priced, great lens. There's a little bit of focus breathing, which you might notice in future videos. Really, really like this lens though. Not too heavy on the a7C. Moving on, we have got the 35mm. Now, originally, I actually just absolutely hated this lens. It was actually the first lens that I got when I picked up the Sony a7C. And I just couldn't figure out the focal point. I really struggled with it. However, I've taken the time over the last year and this has become one of my favorite lenses to use. And I'm still learning really how to compose shots because of this lens. Once we move up, we have got the 85 1.4 G Master. Now this lens is incredible, I'm not gonna lie. Having that 1.4 aperture, so good for night photography. I take it out mostly for that. However, it is the lens that I just don't use a lot, and that is because of my favorite lens, my Sony 70 to 200 G Master Mark 1. This lens I take absolutely everywhere. This is my favorite lens. I love the fact that I can punch into 200. I love that I can go back to the 80mm if I need to, and a little further back for that 70mm if I have to get a little bit further away from my subject. This lens goes to all my wedding shoots. I take it to every single day shoot that I've got. The only reason I don't choose this over my 85 is if I go out for night photography. And that's because having the 1.4 aperture really is favorable, because the Sony a7C's low light capabilities, it's not perfect. No camera's perfect. So that's how I mediate having those two things together. But really the 85 is probably my least used lens currently. Now that is my main camera system. However, I do have two other cameras that I'm going to show you. One is being the DJI mini drone, the 3 Pro. I really like this. It's not something that I fly too often. I used to have the Mini 2, but I flew that into a lake. And so I eventually just upgraded because this had come out. It's a great drone. I am practicing with it. I really try to go out and fly it at least once a week, but I'm trying to pick up a little more time with it. It's something that I try to make room for in my camera bag, because having that aerial focal sort of view is very different and very engaging, but it's not something that I use that often. The other one is another DJI product, which is my favorite thing to take out no matter where I go, is the DJI Action 2. This camera is so good. I love that it can magnetize to my chest. I also absolutely love that it is just so simple to use. I use this when I am shooting most of my street photography, as well as when I go out for any of my client work, because it can capture everything in vertical, so then I can use that for my short form content, for my behind the scenes. That's kind of the main reason I really picked this one up and the drone, because both of them have a vertical angle. Both really great quality as well. Again, they're not something that I would recommend you need straight away, but I do love having this. And if you see any of my future street photography video walkthroughs where we walk around the city, chances are you're going to be seeing it on this little guy as I'm taking photos. So that is all the gear that I currently own right now. I'm very grateful that I have it. I put myself in a decent amount of debt to get it, but if I had to change one thing, even though I would love to have a larger camera body for that better grip, something like the Sony a7 III or the a7 IV, which is currently the camera body that I want to get next, I would probably swap out my 85 G Master, just because I've realized I'm missing that middle focal length. You know, I've got my 20 and my 35, I'm down on that wider angle. You know, I've got my 7200, it hits the 85, so I've kind of got that reach, but I'm missing that in between. So I'm kind of considering looking into saving up and getting the 24-70 G Master Mark II, or the 50mm 1.4 G Master, because I need something in between. If you own either of those lenses, or something of the equivalent, could you comment down below just so I can get an idea of what you think might be better for me? Anyway, that's all of it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.